So today we're looking at completing the square. And completing the square, it's used for a lot of different things. You can actually solve quadratics with it. You can find the maximum minimum. But the main thing that we use completing the square for at GCSE is actually for finding the maximum or minimum of a quadratic. Now we will look at solving using completing the square. However, the majority of the time the questions are, what are the maximum and minimum? So let's just write that down first of all. This is really important. We can use completing the square for many reasons. However, at GCSE, we usually use it for finding the maximum or minimum of a quadratic. So we can use completing the square for many different reasons, but when we're doing it at GCSE, the main reason that we use it for is to find in the maximum or minimum. Now usually what they say is write your quadratic in the form. Now there's a few different forms that they put it in. So like one of the forms they ask for, they usually say, I'm just going to show you this. So write in the form, and it's usually x plus a squared plus b. This is what they usually, you're looking for, like that bracket squared plus b. Sometimes it's in x and q, so it could be like this, x plus p squared plus q. Now those positives can be negatives, but it's that format that you're looking at. It's something, so to x plus a or x plus something squared plus something else, and then you're trying to find out what a and b are. So this is what it looks like in a GCSE question usually. And I'll show you some examples of this. And then I'll show you how we find out a maximum or minimum of this. So there are a few different steps. Now remember, a quadratic. Now we're going to be only be dealing with ones which are in the form x plus a. So remember, we're dealing. This is for dealing with quadratics, and a quadratic. Now we're going to deal with ones that haven't got a number in front of the x squared. So our quadratics are in the form x squared plus ax plus b. Now these aren't the same. This a and b here aren't the same. So we're dealing with quadratics in the form x squared plus ax plus b. Now there's a few different steps for this. There's a few different steps, and I'm going to talk through the steps. So I'm actually going to write these out. So step 1. Step 1. Now I'm going to talk through the steps, and then I'm going to do an example, and you'll be able to see the way it works and then how we use this. I'll talk about that in a second. So step 1. Halve your middle number halve your middle number, or maybe I should halve the middle number of the quadratic. Halve your middle number and put this in a square bracket. Now, I will show you that at some point the reason that we do that. In a square bracket, added to x, or whatever your variable is. It could be y, it could be anything really. So, but we'll talk about this in a second. So halve the middle number and put it in a square bracket added to x. We'll talk about why that is in a second. I'm just going to get this rule down first. So step 2 is to square the number in the bracket and subtract it from the last number in your quadratic. The last number in your quadratic. Now that's pretty much it. Okay, that's pretty much it. Sometimes you might need to simplify. Last little stage, but that is pretty much it. So we halve the middle number in your square bracket, added to x. Now I'll show you in a second why this works once I've done an example. So I'll just give you a second to get that down. Okay, so let's have a look at this together then. Let's have a go at an example, okay? So, example 1. Write the following quadratic in the form x plus p squared plus q. So exactly the format I said it was going to come in. So we've got our quadratic here, and we just need to follow the steps. So step 1 says to halve that middle number, so this number here, halve this middle number and put it in a square bracket added to x. Now if it's a negative, then obviously you're going to add a negative, which is the same as having a negative. But in this case here, so I halve this middle number, which is 8. Sorry, the middle number is 8, so half of this, which is 4, and then I put that in a square bracket added to x. So it's going to be, sorry, it should say it's minus 8, which means it's going to be half of that, which is minus 4. So it's going to be x minus 4 all squared like so. So that's your first step, step 1. Now, the next part says to square the number in your bracket and subtract it from the last number of 9. Sorry, the last number in your quadratic. So, this here, this is the number that we're going to be squaring. Now remember, it doesn't matter that it's negative, because when I square it, anything squared is positive. Minus 4 times minus 4 is positive 16. So, if I square negative 4, it's going to be 16, but I always subtract it. So, minus 16 plus 9. Now, this part here, you're subtracting, although it doesn't, I could put it like this if I wanted to. I could put 9 plus 9 and then subtract the square of that. It doesn't matter which way around you put it, but because you're taking away it, because it's coming from that square bracket, you tend to put it in the front, but it's the same thing. 9 take away the square of the number inside the bracket, or the number inside the bracket subtracted plus the last number, which is 9. Okay, so it doesn't matter which way around you write that, but you tend to write, so minus 4 squared is 16, subtract that from the last number. And then the last little part here is to simplify. So here we've got x minus 4 all squared. 9 minus 16 is equal to, 9 minus 16 is equal to minus 7. Now, some people do get confused and say, well, that's minus 4 times minus 4 is positive 16, so why are you not writing positive 16 down here? Now, the reason that I'm not writing positive 16 down here, I'll show you why this. The second part here says to square the number in the bracket and then subtract it from the last number. So that's where the minus 16 comes from, because I'm subtracting minus 16, okay? Subtracting the square inside the bracket. So if I square the negative 4, it's 16, and then I'm subtracting 16. Now let me show you why that is, okay? If I had, over here, minus 4 all squared. Now what we're doing here is, we know that the minus 4 all squared gives me these first two values here, and I'll show you that, okay? So the minus 4 squared, now I know that minus 4 squared means, minus 4 squared, x minus 4 squared means x minus 4 times x minus 4. Now if I use the grid method for this, that's going to be x minus 4, x minus 4, x squared, minus 4x, minus 4x, positive 16. So I end up with x squared, minus 4x, plus 16, which is equal to x squared minus 8x plus 16. So what we've done is we've written 8x minus 8, x squared minus 8x in this format, but notice this here is the same as this. However, the extra part that we've got is the end, which is the 16. So we've actually got an extra 16. So that's why we subtract it, because we're getting rid of that 16. Okay? Well, don't worry too much about that. We are doing this quickly today, just to make sure we try and get through it. But this is the answer now. So x minus 4. Yes, so 16 is the surplus, yeah? So x minus 4, x minus 7. So here it is, just check x minus 4, x minus 7. I'll do one more, and then I'll give you a chance to have a go at some yourself. So it's just following that formula. You halve the middle number and then subtract it, okay? So this one here, I halve that middle number, which is going to be half of negative 4 is negative 2. So it's going to be x minus 2 all squared. So you halve the middle number and put it in a square bracket added to x. And then I square that number inside the bracket and subtract it, because that's the extra. So minus 2 squared is 4. So then I need to subtract 4 plus the 6 at the end. Don't forget that plus 6. That's the second part. Then I need to simplify. Now remember, minus 2 squared is positive 4, and I'm subtracting that. You always subtract the square inside the bracket. So then this is going to be x minus 2 all squared minus 4 plus 6 is positive 2. Now it might be worth actually writing here that, notice that, I probably should have done this in the first one as well, like literally say what Q and P are. So this is the format that they wanted it in. and this is the format I've got. The difference is that now P is equal to -4 and Q is equal to -7. Okay, so in this one, P was equal to -2 and Q is equal to +2. You can make it explicit at the end. You would get the marks for that because you have written it in that format. So get both of those questions down. I'll give you a second to do that. So let's have a little go at 2 ourselves. So here are 2 questions. So have a little go at these 2 yourself. Have a little go. I'll go through both of these in a second. But have a little go at both of these yourself. A little look at it together then. So let's go this first one. So remember, for the first one, I halve that middle number and put it in a square bracket added to x. So it's going to be x plus 4 all squared. And then I square that number inside it and I subtract it from there. So 4 squared is 16. So minus 16, because I'm always subtracting it, plus 19. Then I simplify this last part, which is going to be x plus 4 all squared. And 19 minus 16 is equal to plus 3. Brilliant. So then let's have a go at that one on the right hand side. So here, half that middle number, which is going to be -1. So it's x minus 1 all squared. And then I square that middle number and subtract it at the end. So, because that's the extra, isn't it? That's the extra on top of this. So it's going to be -1 squared is +1. And I subtract +1 plus the 4. So I end up with x minus 1 all squared plus 3. Brilliant. So let's just check those answers. Super. Okay. So I'm just going to show you a little graph of what these look like. So we'll go on to Desmos. And I'm going to type the format we've got. So y is equal to, open bracket, x plus p, all squared, plus q. And I want you to try and see how these relate. So notice that p is 1 and q is 1, and it gives you here, and I've kind of cheated a little bit because I've just pretty much told you what it is. The minimum's minus 1, 1. But if I move p here to 3, your minimum's now minus 3, 1. If I move this to 3, or maybe I'll move it to 4, then we have a minimum there of minus 3, 4. So whatever I change this to, the minimum inside that bracket is the opposite of what the opposite symbol and the x coordinate. So notice the p here is the x coordinate, but it's the opposite of that because that's positive 3. So it's the negative 3 is the x coordinate, but the outside, which is that q, is your y coordinate. It's the same of this. Okay, so I could change this to minus down here. So this is minus 3, and then look, it's the, I'll make it a different number actually just to make it clearer. If I make it to 5 there, so outside the q here is equal to minus 5, but inside it's still 3. If I make this a negative value, minus 3, you notice that the x coordinate is now positive. Okay, so let's just write that as a little note. And it gives us our minimum value of the quadratic, doesn't it? Yeah? So, let's type it out. When we complete the square, it helps us to find the maximum or minimum point of our quadratic. Inside the bracket is our x coordinate, but the opposite symbol. I can make that bullet point actually. Outside the bracket is our y coordinate and the same symbol. Really important that. So get that down. So these are the important parts. It helps us find our minimum, maximum, or quadratic, and inside the bracket is the x-coordinate and it's the opposite symbol. Outside of our bracket is the y-coordinate and the same symbol.